Hey everyone, it's Ivan, kitbadger.com, out here for another gear review, and today talking about one of my favorite subjects, gun cleaning, and a bunch of stuff honestly from Otis, to include this right here, which is their Elite Range Box. I'm gonna go ahead and start with, I do not like cleaning guns. I enjoy shooting them, do not like cleaning them. And that, in part, I will go ahead and blame the Marine Corps. Hey, go check out your guns, we need to clean them. We haven't shot them. We need to clean them. There's still some finish left on those things. So of course you get them out, you just start cleaning them to the point of like the detriment of the gun, honestly. So kind of soured. That said, I do recognize that cleaning guns is real, and at a certain point you need to, or you'll run into malfunctions. So with that in mind, I would like to clean them with the least time and the least effort possible. And there's some pretty cool things in this kit which actually lend itself to that. This kit has a lot of cool stuff going on. There's actually 2 levels to this range box. We'll go ahead and start with the top, open it up, and we have all kinds of different compartments, to include compartments in compartments. I will say there's a lot of just kind of nice stuff in here, to include like lens cloths that it comes with, as well as lens tissue. And if you're unfamiliar with the actual application of those, if you just try and use a t-shirt or something like that, you can pretty much mess stuff up. But there's all kinds of different organization in here built into it, and yeah, room for all of the things. And then this right here is one of the suppressor pouches by Magpul, one of their DACAs. This is kind of my field kit, which I take when I'm not bringing this whole box. I'll go into kind of components in there in a minute. But yeah, give you a rundown on some of this stuff. Right here are some of the things included in this big kit, to include this chamber flag, which also doubles as basically being able to put it in and check for obstructions in your bore safely, or for that matter, how clean your bore is. And all kinds of pretty handy things that you can screw on to little takedown rods, which allow you to really get into the weeds as far as actually cleaning things, being able to scrape out carbon, or like this little attachment, which is basically kind of a stiff bristled nylon brush. I actually like stuff like this, which I'll get into in a minute with another one of the brushes, but being able to get, because I'll end up with things covered in mud, and so that, or one of the other brushes it comes with, this sweet toothbrush, blue bristled. Now it's basically a nylon all-purpose brush, and this is really handy for largely cleaning mud and stuff, in my experience, off of like optics, optic mounts, stuff like that, where you don't necessarily want to like start grinding away at the actual anodizing. This does a really good job of that. Also in there, you have some different tips for their lubricant, and you have a bunch of patches. I actually keep the other extra patches down below, but these are kind of unique too in the way they're made. They're basically perforated. I'll go into how you use those in a minute too. And yeah. Also in here, you have all of your different bore brushes. So these are also labeled. So right here is 25 caliber, 27, 30, 35. And then of course, you get into even bigger stuff down there. And right here, you notice the 22 caliber is missing because I actually keep it in that other kit, which I'll get into in a minute. But you have all of that stuff. And then I usually keep that there. And then other stuff that's handy, chamber brush for ARs, again, something you'll probably end up using. And then things I don't use as much, I'll keep down here. This right here is basically bore brushes for shotguns. I don't do a ton of shotgun shooting, so it's not a high use thing. I'll keep it down here. And then with that, they of course have one of their ripcords for shotguns, 12 gauge. And I'll go over the use of these two more in a moment. And then it comes with a number of ripcords, to include a handle for them. And then we have pistol as well as 30 cal, and I have the 5.56 somewhere else. And then of course, these guys here, which you can use with, again, that ripcord handle, this being another smaller version of it, and also the different bore brushes. And what else do we got here? Oh yeah, as I mentioned, some of those little parts. So we can put this guy together. We can also use this rod to basically punch out things that are obstructing our bore. It is not like a full-length cleaning rod. Like if you get a stuck case, you're probably not going to get it out with this unless it's a pistol. But these also connect to all of these attachments, so you can use them to get in the weeds with cleaning. This kit also comes with their CLP, this larger kind of tin of it. I usually keep it inside the bag because don't use it a ton. Usually use their other stuff, which I'll get to in a minute, and don't want it leaking, which it can. And then this right here, which is grease. So if you're unfamiliar, some things ideally have grease, or use grease rather, whether it's AKs or like bolt action rifles. And yeah, now I guess, we'll go over that in a second. I'll show you the next level. To get into the next level, pro tip, make sure that one's actually closed, and then on either side you have handles, and you open those, they go down, at which point this whole piece can lift off. And now you actually have some pretty cool things with respect to this box and like being able to take it to the range. So inside here, oftentimes I'll keep my fix-it sticks because torque limiters are real, they're really handy. And also in here, you'll have these different pieces, and then other stuff I'll just keep in here storage-wise will be extra patches. Don't use them a ton, so they're always in here and they don't take up much space or weight. But inside of this, you have two different spots, I guess we'll call them, where this or these can nest. And so one of these is deeper than the other, that there or that there, it sits higher. And what this right here allows is you can put that in there, and set those down. You can take your rifle and drop it on there. And now you actually have a really handy, stable place to work on this, where it's not just leaning against something or you're trying to like clamp it between your knees or something. And that is actually really handy. Definitely use that a bit. And then the other pieces that go in here, this guy as well as this guy. And so, yeah, I will drop these in here and go grab another rifle, show you how I use these. So this right here being my fixed rifle by Q, there's two different sides to these, and one is like that. They're also rubber lined, so they're pretty grippy, and this other one is like that. Doesn't matter which one you put it in, not necessarily. Really, it's going to come down to the rifle and however it fits best, honestly. So with this, I can drop that side in there, this in there, snug it in there. Now I have access to my gun. It's nice and stable. I can do things to it, to include just honestly even mounting optics, which already lined it up to where it needs to be with respect to distance eye relief. But I can put it there. I'm not trying to like hold it in my hands. Then, time and opportunity, I can go ahead and get my fix-it sticks out, find the proper torque limiters, as well as the bit, T25 I think, and I can go ahead and get this thing mounted. And just like that, I now have my optic mounted, and I could go re-zero this. Also, if you are shooting like long range super precision to the point where you're probably going to have a one piece cleaning rod or something like that, you can of course drop your gun back into this. Gives you access to basically run that cleaning rod through, or if you're going to use something like one of the Ripcords, you can of course feed it in here, clean it, and again, just being able to securely access your gun somewhere where you otherwise would not have a workbench. Some people are like, why would I do that on this versus in my shop somewhere? Well, twofold. One, you most certainly can in your shop actually have this set up on your workbench if you don't have some other setup for holding your gun. And the other part, while I recognize my use case might be a little different than other people, in that I'm always going out and trying and doing different things, razor and optics, mounting things, but the ability to have something stable to work off of, especially, and yes, I get it, a lot of people aren't like, oh, well, I'm gonna go swap optics like out at the range. Sometimes you don't get to make that choice, i.e. you go out to the range and something dies and now you need to do that. Being able to actually have the tools and a good, easy way to do that, incredibly valuable. Because whether you appreciate it or not, your time is usually the most valuable thing you have. And having a complete range day ruined because you don't have means to go ahead and swap something out or do a good job with it, actually have it stable so you can like level scopes and stuff. Yeah, like you just ruined your whole range day versus actually having the means and ability to do that. As I mentioned, I do have kind of a field kit for if I'm not taking that, whether this is something that just goes into like a day pack, going out to go do some shooting or like a shooting course or something like that, where I don't want to drag this whole thing around. And this is kind of like the high value stuff for me with respect to just keeping a gun going. And so I will, again, keep it inside here, makes it really handy. But yeah, I'll go over everything I have in here real quick. Inside this pouch, I have one of the Ripcords. This one right here is for 223-556, and on it, it says 223. I think it says it on both sides. Yeah, on both sides. And so if I'm gonna be shooting something other than that, like 30 cal, I'll go ahead and swap that out. I also have this small bottle of lube, and then a AP brush, this one right here. These teeth on it, and then this little guy right here, which is a bore brush, and then probably one of the coolest things is this right here, which is their 556 bone tool, and it is multi-use and yeah, really handy. So I'll show you how I use this thing first. Also, before I forget, I have one of the handles for the Ripcord in here, but yeah, cleaning guns, it is real, and I don't know, between the two, I would rather have a wet gun than a clean gun, but ideally both. And once you get into like colder weather, it actually gets really important that it is both clean as well as lubricated. And if you shoot suppressed, which I pretty much exclusively do, then yeah, it gets even more important because guns get dirty pretty quick. So some of these, well, specifically this little guy right here is made to help you clean your bolt carrier group. And yeah, pretty cool little device. Honestly, wish I had one in the Marine Corps because so much cleaning. But I will show you how to use this thing right now. This bone tool is pretty cool. Basically helps you clean all the different components of your bolt carrier group. So here on this end, there's these scraping surfaces where inside of your bolt carrier group, where your bolt goes, you can put that guy in there and twist that, and you'll end up basically removing carbon from inside there. It'll come out along those edges. Then with your firing pin, lots of times any of the carbon and stuff like that on the actual firing pin, you can just wipe off, but usually carbon will build up down there. So right here on this side there, basically you can drop your firing pin in there. Again, there are surfaces that are going to grab it and catch it. And so spin the firing pin in there, and it ends up removing all the carbon that basically builds up on the back there. And then lastly, with your actual bolt, you always have carbon that's going to build up here right in front of those gas rings. And so the back side of this, again, surfaces made to grab and scrape carbon, put it in there, twist it, whether you're twisting the bolt or you can obviously twist the tool, and you end up removing the carbon that builds up along that edge. Then right here we have this AP brush. This one is kind of between the three of them as far as I showed you that one with the nylon bristles. This guy right here does a good job for anywhere you just have things that are persistent and don't want to like wipe off. You can go ahead and just get off with this pretty easy. There's also one with like steel bristles. Typically, where would I use that? Place I actually use things like that is if I'm trying to actually clean threads off. Like say I have a muzzle device, broke it free, there's some rock set on it still. I'll go ahead and clean the threads with that before I put another device on there, because that one is pretty abrasive. You can like remove finishes, things like that. Would not want to use it on like anodized aluminum, anything like that. This, you're typically okay, but again, if it's aluminum, lots of times I'll honestly just use that nylon bristle one. Works great. But for that ripcord, you will take your, I guess I can separate this. You'll take your gun, and it is ultimately, you're like, oh, I've seen those before. It's like a, like fill in the blank, I forget what those things are called. Nope, definitely gonna forget. But I actually have one, I think, just because I had one kicking around right here. Do they work? They do work. Why do I not like them very much? Because of this right here. They end up like that. And like I said, not super into cleaning guns. And when I clean them, I just want to do it quickly and easily. And these usually end up like that for me. These do not, because the way these are made, there's actually a cable in there. So, I mean, you could probably put a knot in this if you wanted to. I would encourage you not to. But yeah, these actually work great, and they don't get all tangled like that. And they are threaded, so you can use them with a bore brush. Do you need to? No, you don't. These are made so there's basically a cable inside there, and then there's like a spiral rubber in here, which is going to continually like make surface or make contact rather with the inside of the bore and give a little bit, like, again, these are caliber specific, so this is for 5.56, 223. And then on top of that, you have this entire coating, which is actually made out of Nomex, good to like 700 degrees. So I would not shoot this to the point where the can's glowing and be like, oh man, let me go run this thing through it. But you can shoot your gun, and without waiting till it's cold, you can go ahead and run this through it if you want, this ripcord. And so the way you use it, one side is thicker than the other. And so you take the side that is not super thick and basically just feed that through. May or may not. Yeah, probably want to take a can off. Pro tip. So now it should feed through a little bit easier, but take that guy, feed it through there till it comes out, and then you take your handle and it goes on and then when you slide it up, it basically grabs that brass piece, which is thicker, so that you can, at that point, just pull all the way through. And comes out. Can you just do it like that? You absolutely can. Also, that little thunk basically was this edge grabbing inside the muzzle device when it actually left the barrel. But if you want it to be cleaner, again, this is made for being quick, like quick and dirty. Like, hey, I just need to make sure like bore's pretty clean. This 100% does it. If you've been shooting a ton and you're like, man, this thing is so dirty, and you insist on cleaning it even more, you can go ahead and use this guy right here. It goes ahead, again, you want the thicker part to go through the barrel last, so you'd put it on that side. Thread this guy on here. And then if you are going to do this, I would suggest go ahead and putting some of the like CLP or this lubricant. Either one will end up helping. And put some of that stuff on there. And then same thing. Take our handle off. Again, you don't really need to run this thing through more than once. However, if you are going to run, like I said, that through it, or if you're using just the straight cable, because you're going to end up running it through, which is fine, then you'll actually want to run it through more than once. Meaning, if I'm going to run this through it, that is the last thing going through. So whatever that basically scraped off, it didn't actually pull out of the bore. So take this guy off. Again, it'll work fine if you're not using this, unless you're just insanely dirty. But you can take that guy off now to run a second pass, which is basically going to grab any of the stuff that ended up kicking loose when it went through that last time. And pull it back through. Bam. So clean. As far as cleaning ARs, like that's pretty much it. I'll run that through usually once, unless, as I mentioned, it's really dirty, in which case I will run this through once, followed by the Ripcord a second time without this. And then after that, again, if the bolt carrier is incredibly dirty, or the inside of the gun, which usually if you run your gun wet, you can wipe it out. Otherwise, use this guy, clean it out real quick. And then lastly, I'll pretty much just lube this guy and put it back together. Starting with the bolt carrier. I'm pretty liberal with lubrication. If your gun's like, oh, that's too much, it'll let you know. You'll just have black stuff all over your face. Happens all the time. But I got back in there. Throw some more lube on here. Cam pin is always making contact and moving. Do you need to lubricate your firing pin? Nope. Does it make the carbon come off easier? Yep. And then something a lot of people don't do, which is fine if you just want to listen to a grating sound all the time, is actually lubricate the top of your charging handle. Throw that guy in there. That in there. And put this guy back together. And then of course you can function check it or just roll the dice and go with it. Probably function check it. Something else worth mentioning, if you are going to actually run patches, as I had mentioned earlier, you have these kind of special patches. And you have a 3-inch as well as a 2-inch. And so rather than typically where you basically fold your patch in half, get it started in here through this like little eyelet, and then do that, and then run it through. What ends up happening is you end up missing parts of the bore, which we're trying to clean, right? And so the way these work, probably hard to see, but there's these little perforations in there. So you'll take this and actually run it up through one of the perforations, and then you can fold this piece back like you usually would, run it through there, and now this piece comes up, and we have this entire thing going through, which is making contact the entire way. And so for this, I would, one, usually run a bore brush through there to like knock stuff loose, and then I would use this, but for the sake of argument, we're gonna say I already did that. And then we'll throw some CLP on here. And you take this guy, starting from the chamber, moving towards the bore, or towards the muzzle rather. Run that guy in there, and then grab your T-handle so you can pull this through. Get that in there. And, oh, my bad, I should probably actually make sure it's seated. Ta-da, there we go. And then, bam, all the way through. And you can keep doing that until your patches come out clean or until you just get tired of it. As I opened with, not a big fan of cleaning, but if I'm going to, I want to make it quick and easy. I will say Ripcord, really easy. And also don't get tangled in the knots, which is really nice. This kit right here, I want to say around 180 bucks, comes with everything, to include plenty of things to basically make your own, like, I don't know, something you'd throw in like a go bag or something along those lines, versus dragging this whole thing around. Or you can get specific kits of basically their Ripcord. So they are all caliber specific. This one 270, which is also, yeah, synonymous with 6.8 or 7mm. So you can get something very specific. These, I want to say, run around like 15 bucks or something like that, versus like everything in the kitchen sink. But as much as I don't like it, cleaning guns is real, and being able to have the tools and equipment to do it is pretty important, especially if your gun maybe isn't just a range toy. Like if you have guns that you're going to rely your life as well as your family's, probably want to maintain those. But there'll be links down below if you want to check it out. And yeah, as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.